This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Good afternoon. We are doing it live right here, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons. We get right down to business with the news-driven hour right after Ben Shapiro and just before the 790 KABC News Blitz with Randy Wang at 5. Mottek On Money. We are live on the air right now on 790 KABC, streaming live online worldwide at KABC.com. And yes, the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, KABC.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, all of your favorite podcast platforms. Bitcoin and tech stocks stealing the show today to kick off the new week, with the Fed set to take the spotlight later this week. With another expected interest rate cut, Bitcoin is shot to a record high above $107,000 today. Yep, you heard me. Crypto rally continues with Bitcoin leading the charge, popping above 107,000. Bitcoin's record rally topping 107K today after President-elect Trump repeated that he plans to create a U.S. Bitcoin strategic reserve similar to a strategic oil reserve. Fueling more enthusiasm among the crypto bulls, investor sentiment also getting a lift from the inclusion of MicroStrategy into the tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 index that will likely lead to more inflows for the software firm turned Bitcoin buyer. They call that one the Bitcoin proxy. Bitcoin moving higher today, and looks like MicroStrategy shares also moved up a couple of dollars to 410 and change. The stock's up 400, make that 547% this year. Stocks, meanwhile, ended mostly higher today, with tech stocks leading the gains. We're expecting that big Fed meeting on Wednesday with an announcement from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell on the economy and a decision on interest rates. It's widely expected the Fed will be cutting rates again. MicroStrategy stock, jumping today on the Bitcoin news. Oil did settle lower today as concerns over the outlook for energy demand were renewed by some economic reports coming out of China today that showed retail sales growth unexpectedly weakened in November. The price of oil right now hovering at around $70.64 a barrel in New York. Brent crude in London hovering just below $74 a barrel. Broadcom stock moving higher today of about 10.5%. Micron stock also moved higher. A drop in United Healthcare stock today, one of the biggest reasons we saw the Dow moving lower, while the S&P 500 and NASDAQ rallied today. United Health shares dropping nearly $22 to $4.98 and change, a drop of 4.2%, putting the stock at a 5-month low. The company's CEO was recently murdered in New York. Healthcare companies fell amid concerns about regulation from the Trump administration. Add that to the mix. A retreat for the United Health Group continued after President-elect Trump vowed to root out middlemen out of the U.S. healthcare system in an apparent reference to insurance plan administrators or drug company wholesalers. Federal appeals court recently struck down the NASDAQ's diversity disclosure rules for companies listed on the stock exchange. I'll discuss that later this hour with Dante King, assistant professor at Mayo Clinic College of Medicine and Science. We'll also get an update on the crypto space with Jason Nelson from Decrypt. But first, right now on Your Money, the markets, the economy, Bitcoin too, and the whole works. Joining us live now, top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, the president and chief investment officer at Winans Investments, which you can find at WINANSinvestments.com. Ken Winans, also a market historian, author of numerous books, including his latest, Investment Atlas 3, Creating Wealth Using Historical Trends. Great gift for the holidays, by the way. He's also a Forbes magazine contributor, so be sure to check out his latest article. And he has his crypto credentials, too. Sounds like we got the right guy in the studio. He was also host, by the way, of Winning with Winans, heard every Monday night right here on 790 KBC. At 6 p.m., your favorite station, 790. Ken Winans, thank you so much for being with us here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank. And all you can say is the bulls are running, and they're running fast.
Yes, sir. Big day today, especially for crypto. Let's start there.
Well, you know, it's funny. The crypto situation is just when you have the government continuing talking about refocusing itself, possibly building, as you say, strategic reserves. It's conceptually it'll be interesting to see how they're going to deal with this. With, of course, that there can only be so many Bitcoins, but we'll have to see. But as you brought up, and the one stock you didn't mention in that whole mix was Coinbase. And when you go and look at what all these crypto-related stocks are doing, here you're looking at Coinbase up 81% this year, up 790%. since December of 2022. There's just been some real power. But Frank, a couple of things. It was an interesting day. Number one, obviously NASDAQ's doing great. We're going to end on some very, very good notes. Volume is very light. I would just caution everybody about that. We're going into the holiday doldrums. There's a lot of rebalancing within mutual funds and ETFs. You're going to see a lot of that, especially in small cap indices like the Russell 2000. So there's a lot of mix and matching. But what you talked about with healthcare, what I'm hearing about, and certainly my Forbes colleagues as well, companies are taking security a lot more serious. This whole thing with United Health that tragically happened, and now you add the shooting in Wisconsin, there's just a lot more emphasis on security. And I think you'll hear more about it in January.
Certainly, we've been talking about that on this program as well. The NASDAQ at a record high today of 247 points at 20,174, popping above 20K just recently. The Dow, meanwhile, down 110 points at 43,717. The S&P 500 did manage a closing gain of 23 points at 6,074. With the Fed set to meet on Wednesday, another rate cut expected. That seems to be fueling a rally among the tech names. The tech sector historically, and you're a market historian, you can tell me more than I can, certainly sensitive to interest rates, right? And you've also mentioned that Bitcoin and other cryptos seem to be correlated to the NASDAQ. So what are your thoughts about what's happening in the tech space?
There's an article I wrote, I think it was in June, was my crypto article, and it talked very clearly, and it's so easy to see it, that Ethereum and Bitcoin have quarterly relationship to the NASDAQ. So it's playing itself out. But I think even more than that, you're finding a lot of the old guard I'm talking about strictly in the tech space. A lot of the old guard are coming back. Google had a big day. Microsoft had a big day. And then I think that news that was in front page news this morning, that Apple is going to revitalize their product line. That also sent a very big mark throughout the entire tech sector because tech had been languishing quite a bit since August. So you have to have things rebalanced to have the bull stay healthy.
Curiously, NVIDIA, the Magnificent One, which kicked off the AI tech rally, pulling back recently, in fact, dipping into correction territory, down to 10% from its most recent high, down to 225 today to 132. Stock is, up about 166% year to date, but pulling back a bit over the last month or so. What about the Magnificent One, which, by the way, is now part of the Dow Jones Industrial Average?
That's a big part of the problem. When you suddenly have these kind of stocks get added to these big indices, it can be guilt by association. If something's going on in the Dow, that, it could just be simply rebalancing. I know there's a lot of managers right now that want to book some profits. They want to show that they're doing their jobs. And I just think that you're going to find any of these high flyers, there probably will be some fairly important profit taking. But Frank, with that being said, let's also keep in mind, NVIDIA has had one heck of a run, up 167% this year, up 803% since December of 2022. So to have it pull back 10% off of its high, that's a blip.
What a year. I mean,
absolutely.
Fastest year ever, by the way, as far as I'm concerned, and a great year at that, with the Santa Claus rally still expected, right? Historically, what can we expect here as we get closer to Christmas and Hanukkah? We have another Christmas situation coming up here on December 25th.
Well, we do. And then also, New Year's and Christmas both fall in the middle of the week this year.
Yeah.
So you've got trading days that happen after both holidays. I just get the sense as I talk to my clients, I talk to other people in my field, there's no sense. I mean, there's a little concern that maybe it's getting a little bubblish. I'm hearing that a little bit, but not crazy, not this panic that is going to hurry up. But I would say that people are concerned that clients are getting maybe a little greedy and they're asking their advisors, hey, why don't I have more NVIDIA? And it's like one guy said, well, what, we've had an 800-point rally and now you want to buy it? No, there's some of that going on. But at the end of the day, just remember, rebalancing is going to be the name of the day for the last 2 weeks of this year, and volume levels will be somewhat light.
Someone will be breaking out the bubbly this year, Elon Musk. Looks like he went up about $15 billion today. Yeah.
Tesla was on a tear.
That's right. Tesla up nearly 27 today to 463 and change. And let's see here, Elon Musk's wealth now put at $454.5 billion. He shot above $400 billion just about a week ago. We're at 454.5 billion right now. Tesla, Elon Musk.
I think that is an EV direct play that the Trump administration, with its threats on tariffs, are going to restrict or at least increase the cost of Chinese-made electric cars to be at parity with Tesla. And also, let's face it, the news coming out of Detroit right now between Chrysler with their CEO leaving, the news from General Motors, Ford finally is repositioning itself for a large battery consortium that's going to be funded by the government. But there's been a lot of missteps out of Detroit on cars. I'm not 100% sure what the problem is. But, Tesla is plugging ahead. They just keep moving ahead.
And, by the way, it's American.
It is absolutely American-made. But I also think, too, it's actually interesting that Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump because they want to come to terms on the issues that are going to affect this new administration, mainly fentanyl and illegal immigration. And I think you're going to have China, the same thing, the threat of things makes you realign things, especially when you're looking at auto plants in Mexico. I think it's just going to equalize everything, and that's why Tesla's moving.
Somebody stopped me on the street in Beverly Hills over the weekend, someone in manufacturing, and said, what about the tariff situation here? L.A., by the way, the L.A. area is the largest manufacturing region in the United States, so a lot of people will want to hear your answer on that one, Ken. With the tariffs being proposed, what do you think that's going to do to manufacturing and the economy overall next year?
Well, here's the thing. Two things. Number one, we know this president from before. 2016 through 2021, we knew how it was. Also, go read his book, The Art of the Deal. If you really, anybody who says that Trump perplexes them, go read his books. He's very straight about it. He always used leverage to negotiate. As he says, he zigs and zags. So I think we're going to see much more of that. But yes, we all know that, we don't want trade wars. But at the same time, and I happen to agree with this, if you have countries that have been taking unfair advantage of us, we need to come back to terms with them, and especially out of Europe. Europe is going to have a lot of explaining to do going into next year, in my opinion.
And fairness is something that resonates with Americans, and so that message certainly was powerful the way he laid it out. Speaking of books, you have Investment Atlas 3 following up on your previous Investment Atlas books, 1 and 2, and this one is Investment Atlas 3, Creating Wealth Using Historical Trends. Thank you for gifting me this beautiful book here for the holidays, Ken Winans. Tell us about the book. It's beautifully put together and certainly makes a wonderful holiday gift.
Frank, well, thank you very much for talking about it. It's always a joy when an author completes one of his projects. It's kind of funny. It's whether it's a congratulations or a condolence on being done with it, but it is a history book. And for the audience who knows how I am, I don't think there's anything new. I don't believe in black swans. I believe that we don't look at history strong enough in business. This is an investment history book. And Frank, if you remember, I talked about it on one of your other shows that, we talk about crypto being new. And I think I pointed out to you back in the 1840s and 50s, they were issuing private currency back then. Mm-hmm. So crypto only picked up on what it did there. We want to talk about the success of Amazon. Go look at Sears Roebuck, who came up with the idea of a catalog and things being transported by rail the next day. So again, history is important in business. This book demonstrates that. And keep in mind that we are in these very historical times. The reason I updated the book was because of crypto, was because of what happened with the pandemic and the inflation. And inflation is still going to be with us for quite a while to come.
On the Air Live with money manager Ken Winans at winansinvestments.com. And Ken, let me ask you this. It is the holiday season, and people are out there, Santa's helpers, doing their important work right now and going on to Amazon as well. Jeff Bezos, let me see here. I think he had a net change of about $5 billion today, I believe, on the upside of $246.1 billion. Amazon has been on a roll, too. What are your thoughts about Amazon and the retailers this season?
I was pleasantly surprised because we've been talking about retail stocks now for about 2 months. And I kept saying I think it's going to be a strong season. Even with all the credit card debt, people are in a good mood. They want to go spend money. Lo and behold, what did they report after Thanksgiving? 128 million people were going to brick and mortar stores, Frank. They were going to, and that's even with the weather not particularly nice. And what's happening is that a lot
Except
of
here.
Huh?
Except here.
Except here.
Beautiful
Did you go shopping?
Of course. Of course.
You have 2 ladies in your family. I'm sure you did go shopping.
Yes.
But here's the point. What's happening is that the stores have figured out, the brick and mortar guys are doing a better job of coordinating their online efforts with their brick and mortar, so you're getting the full experience. And that's how they're also controlling their inventories. But do keep in mind, for what I'm seeing from the retailers, they're beginning to run out of stuff. And so if you're going to be a last-minute shopper like I typically am, you might be buying a lot of gift cards because I don't think you're going to find the items.
Yeah, Rick Caruso has been on this program as the Grove and all the outdoor beautiful places here celebrating this beautiful weather. And we're reminded that, really all real estate here in Southern California is free, believe it or not. What you pay for is the weather.
That's absolutely correct.
Magnificent evening here with that full moon out there. Absolutely fantastic. So a lot to celebrate here. Gold, let's not forget about gold and silver, which have also seen impressive gains here. Gold still near its all-time high at 2,668 and change here at last check. Silver above 31 an ounce. Your thoughts on good old gold and silver here?
Who would have ever guessed, I'm going to talk about the tortoise and the hare fable, that silver and gold would both outperform the S&P 500 without dividends this year? I don't think anybody was making that prediction. I certainly thought it was going to be a good year, but not that great. Those trends are your friends. They're going to continue. Historically and seasonally, gold and silver have a good run right through February. It's also a geopolitical play. We talk about crypto reserves in our situation. The central banks around the world are stockpiling gold, especially China. So expect that to continue.
All right, we're going to be continuing the conversation tonight at 6 on Winning with WINANS, but this audience expects you to take this next question here, Ken Winans, and that is, where are you putting money now and or taking it off the table?
This is where it gets fun. I'm largely fully invested right now, but I continue to it blows my mind. I continue to run into investors that with seasonality, the retailers, this is a no-brainer. And when I look at stocks, just something simple like Costco or TJX, I would still add those to the portfolio. They've had a great run for the holidays. They're going to continue to do well through the remainder of the holidays. I would look there. Also, look at the restaurants. The restaurants are packed right now. I live in Las Vegas. People are going out again, Frank. My favorite of the bunch is Texas Roadhouse, TXRH. But play the festive thing. Go after these kind of stories because they're well-managed companies, and this is their season.
Fantastic. And any other thoughts on the crypto space with Bitcoin popping above 107,000 today? This is just absolutely eye-popping, this rally, and the Ethereum also still hovering at around 4,000 here. Doge has had a big year, too. Let's not forget about that one.
Well, I'll tell you what, my favorite of the whole bunch, and the reason for it is that it wins. It's an exchange. It wins on anything. To me, it's the NASDAQ of crypto. It's Coinbase. They are the exchange. And I am of the opinion, if Schwab is serious next year about, as regulation comes out, about Schwab is going to issue crypto-type opportunities to their clients, they've stated that publicly, I think that the player they will team up with, don't hold me on this, Frank, it's my opinion, I think it's Coinbase. It's a no-brainer for them because they insure their accounts.
Ken Winans, wish we had more time, and it turns out we will have more time in the 6 o'clock hour on Winning with Winans here, heard every Monday night at 6 p.m. on your favorite station, 790 KABC. Top-ranked money manager Ken Winans, President and Chief Investment Officer at Winans Investments, which you can find at winansinvestments.com, and author of the book, Investment Atlas 3, Creating Wealth Using Historical Trends. Be sure to check it out, and makes a wonderful gift, as I just discovered here. Ken, thank you very, very much for joining us live here this afternoon.
My pleasure, Frank.
And we'll talk again at 6 p.m. right here on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here on 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Bitcoin soaring above $107,000 today for the first time. Yep, you heard me. Topping 107K. Looks like it's slipping a bit now, back to just above $106,000 at $106,070 per Bitcoin. Ethereum pulling back about 50 now at 3,994, and Doge at the moment at 40 cents. Bitcoin and tech names stole the show today to kick off the new week. We see the Dow hitting pulling back today, down 110 points at 43,717. The VIX index, by the way, moved higher by 6%. The S&P 500 did move higher today by 23 points to 6,074. It was the NASDAQ that was the star of the show today on Wall Street, popping 247 points higher to a record high close of 20,174. This after the NASDAQ cleared 20K just Last week or so, the yield on the 10-year note is back to 4.40%. Crude oil futures, right now it's $70.64 a barrel in New York. It's $73.91 a barrel in London. Shares of United Health Group moving lower by nearly $22 today to $498.50. NVIDIA, the Magnificent One, having a rough patch here, pulling back more than just over 10% from its recent high, down 2.25 today at 132. Still up 166% year to date. Shares of MicroStrategy, time to start focusing on this one here. A MicroStrategy stock is up 547% so far this year. It'll be joining the NASDAQ 100 on December 23rd. This is considered a Bitcoin proxy. MicroStrategy stock moving higher today in reaction to the company's latest Bitcoin purchase and its upcoming addition to the NASDAQ 100. MicroStrategy also beefing up its Bitcoin holdings in a securities filing release today, fueling more bullish sentiment. The company purchased 15,350 Bitcoin, raising its total Bitcoin holdings to 439,000, worth about $45.5 billion, according to a post from Michael Saylor announcing the latest purchases. The company's average cost for Bitcoin is $61,725. As I just mentioned, it cleared $107,000 earlier today. Price of gold today down $1.10 at the moment at $2,668 and change. Silver down 1 cent at $31.05. And now the latest news for you here on 790 KBC. Good afternoon. Big day for Bitcoin today, getting close to $108,000 per Bitcoin, hitting a record high today. Bitcoin's record rally continuing, topping 107K today after President-elect Trump repeated that he has plans to create a U.S. Bitcoin strategic reserve, similar to the strategic oil reserve, stoking new enthusiasm for crypto, especially Bitcoin. And Ethereum, by the way, is at a 3-year high above 4,000. Bitcoin moving higher today on the news that MicroStrategy will be going into the tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 index that will likely lead to more inflows for the software firm turned Bitcoin buyer and Bitcoin proxy. We see MicroStrategy stock having a big rally this year. It's up more than 500% so far this year, moving higher again today. They're beefing up their Bitcoin holdings again. In a securities filing we heard, they purchased more than 15,000 Bitcoin, raising its total Bitcoin holdings to 439,000, worth about $45.5 billion. Joining us live now, the guy's had a very busy day, so we do appreciate him coming to the line here, and that is Jason Nelson, who's a reporter at Decrypt.co, a Bitcoin and crypto news site. Jason, thank you very much for taking the call here today.
Thank you for having me.
Take it from the top and give us your impression of this record-shattering day for Bitcoin and the big jump in Ethereum to a 3-year high.
Well, you know, we talked about it before, is that you're seeing a lot of movement. You even mentioned it a second ago. With the Bitcoin reserve anticipation, people are really starting to really move into Bitcoin. You even have companies, including Microsoft, creating Bitcoin treasuries similar to what MicroStrategy did. Microsoft's shareholders didn't care for the idea. In fact, very few of them actually voted for it. But it's just telling that so many companies that you may not associate with Bitcoin are starting to look at the asset.
On there live with Jason Nelson from Decrypt.co. What about the other stocks related to Bitcoin here, Jason? MicroStrategy certainly taking the spotlight again today. Coinbase has seen a tremendous run. And then, of course, you have the various ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum. What are your thoughts about what's happening among the stocks associated with these cryptos?
Well, the ETFs are getting a lot of attention primarily because they're still a way for people to be exposed to cryptocurrency without actually having to hold it. And so you're going to see, as people come into Bitcoin and the price of Bitcoin rises, the people are going to start looking at ETFs as well and seeing how they can benefit from the rise without actually having to hold the asset themselves.
All right. What about, let's talk about MicroStrategy, which we haven't really got into much, but it's hard to ignore a more than 500% gain this year. They're adding to their holdings, and this guy Saylor, of course, getting a lot of attention here.
Yeah. Michael Saylor has been a proponent of Bitcoin for many years. We're looking at, we covered today that they're above 46 billion with their latest buy. They've been pretty much steadily buying Bitcoin in large chunks since about 2020. So it's just, there's really no better way of saying it. It's basically it's hoarding Bitcoin, and so right now, MicroStrategy is one of, if not the largest holder of Bitcoin for a private company.
All right. So is it increasingly about supply and demand these days? We've been hearing that mentioned more often as it relates to the price of Bitcoin. Looks like some other countries also trying to get a Bitcoin reserve. Russia, for example, Forbes, I see, reporting leak reveals Russia's bid for Bitcoin reserve amid huge 2025 price predictions. What's happening on that front?
Well, you're seeing a lot of countries who are basically following our lead. They see that we're eyeing a Bitcoin reserve, so you have a lot of countries who may not have been favorable towards Bitcoin in the past, changing their mind and looking at doing the same thing, which is going to undoubtedly drive the price of Bitcoin higher. But it's interesting to think about the future. Will these countries hold it, or will they cash it out for fiat or American dollars or whatever when their economy has any type of issue? And then what will that do to the price of Bitcoin?
All right, not to be left out, XRP getting a lot of attention today amid demand growth, as you've been reporting here at decrypt.co. XRP demand grows as Bitcoin, Ethereum drive billions to crypto ETFs. What do we need to know now about XRP here?
Well, they're going to start trading a stablecoin called the RLUSD. Supposed to be launching on Tuesday. And it's Ripple and XRP have had quite a positive swing lately. They've had some favorable rulings, and there's even questions right now as if they'll launch their own ETFs, similar to the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs that are already on the market. And so people are really enthusiastic about XRP right now. And right now, they seem to be having a very good week.
So good that, as being reported on your site, XRP, a token launched by the co-founders of Ripple Labs, has nearly quadrupled in price since Election Day, November 5th, rising to $2.46 from 50 cents. Last week, investment products for the asset saw $145 million worth of inflows, lifting year-to-date inflows to $421 million. So we're keeping an eye on that one. And then what about Doge, which we've been hearing more about lately in the context of this new Department of Government Efficiency, which is run by Elon Musk and his new buddy Vivek Ramaswamy. What about Doge, the meme coin?
Well, it's still a situation. Rising tide lifts all boats. Doge is still riding high on the agency, and also because their chief cheerleader is currently in the future going to be very busy in the White House. So you have a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about where that's going. And Doge has already had a very big community that was supporting the asset even before Elon Musk became associated with it. But there's just this enthusiasm going through the space right now. So all of the coins, especially the ones that are older, tend to have a lot of people basically taking their victory lap.
All right, what about the crypto mining stocks, which have also seen a pop? Any names there catching your attention?
Well, you have the mining stocks are doing well because, of course, the cryptocurrency industry is built on mining. So as the industry goes up, as more transactions go through, the miners are going to see an upswing in transactions, which equate to more money for them. So you're just really seeing a lot of enthusiasm all around.
So you got Marathon Digital Holdings, Riot Platforms, TerraWolf, Cypher Mining, and the list goes on.
Right.
All right. And what's the What's at the razor's edge at the moment on the crypto news, since you're right there in front of your computer screen and ready to put the news out this evening?
Well, right now we're looking at how AI agents are going to influence the crypto market going forward. You have quite a few companies in the crypto space that actually do AI related work. So now people are trying to see how they can integrate AI into their trading, into their data analytics and things like that. So that's what we're looking at right now.
All right, before we let you off the hook, we're speaking on a day in which Bitcoin rallied past $107,000 for the first time, getting close to $108,000 for a while, as a matter of fact. And you track all of these various Bitcoin predictions, and we've seen some pretty wild predictions. Of course, a lot of people never thought we'd see $107,000 for Bitcoin. But what's your assessment here of where Bitcoin goes from here?
Well, I remember we spoke a few weeks ago that analysts were saying that we could see 200,000. Before it was maybe. Now that we've crossed the 100,000 mark, it's possible. I think a lot of it depends on if the Bitcoin reserve actually comes into being. If that happens, I don't have a problem with saying that 200,000 is likely. If not, we'll probably stay around these levels. But really, it depends on what happens in the broader economy.
All right, Jason, thank you very much for taking the call on a busy day for you. We do appreciate it very much, and we'll be following you on your website as well as on social media. That's Jason Nelson from Decrypt.co, which is a news site for Bitcoin and crypto news. Thank you very much, Jason, for joining us live here this afternoon.
Thank you.
Out to the freeways now. Beautiful evening here in Southern California. Let's see how the ride's going down. 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Good afternoon. Last week, we were talking about the shooting death of a CEO on the streets of New York. Today, school security back in focus after a shooting incident at a school in Madison, Wisconsin. 3 people dead after a shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. Teacher and teenage student were killed, according to police. The shooter also now dead. Joining us live now is the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former LA City Council member and longtime LAPD sergeant, still a reserve officer with the LAPD. And Dennis ZINE, thank you for taking the call on this tragedy here. Now, school security back in focus. Your reaction to today's events there in Madison, Wisconsin?
That's correct, Frank. Another tragedy, another part of America where we see these tragedies continuing to occur. And I want to bring focus to the Los Angeles Unified School District, where the individuals in charge of the LA Unified School District, when groups called for defunding of law enforcement, they had the decision to reduce the number of LA Unified School armed police officers and eliminate the night watch. And I read a recent report how the superintendent of the LA Unified Board of Education is complaining about crime at the campuses, how crime is increasing at the campuses. And I see the tragedy today. And I put it together and I say, you can't do the knee-jerk reaction of eliminating law enforcement and reducing officers that are on the night watch and expect things to remain safe and calm. It's ridiculous that the LA Unified School District Administration, those elected officials and the superintendent, called for a reduction in the number of LA Unified School District police officers, and the result is more crime, more violence, and fewer officers. While they have a token force of LA Unified School police officers, many of them were dismissed, unceremoniously dismissed, as they cut the numbers of officers because the knee-jerk reaction of some of the spineless individuals that run the LA Unified School District decided to do that. And now we see tragedies occur. You need to have law enforcement there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, protecting the students, the teachers, and the facilities. So when I read the article today, it just reminded me, and recent articles, LA Unified School District Superintendent, complaining about the crime. Well, what do you expect when you reduce your police force and you send them to other agencies, which they all got jobs at other agencies because all these agencies are screaming for additional personnel? but the blame falls on those administrators and the superintendent of the Unified School District. I'm calling them out and let them defend themselves on why they made those cuts and why we see these tragedies occur. This is just the latest in school shootings around the country. And we saw what happened with the individual in charge of hospitals in New York City. I mean, violence occurs. You need to prevent violence. You need to have law enforcement there to make sure it's safe for everyone. And it just frustrates me when I see them say, oh, how terrible. Yes, how terrible, because you're the ones that caused it to happen. And I put the blame right on LA Unified School District administration, the superintendent of education, and those folks that are involved in the charge and made that decision. Let's cut this police department. Let's eliminate the night watch. So no one at night. And I said, well, what happens if a call goes out? We'd send them to the local police agency. Well, they're overwhelmed with calls for service. They don't have time to patrol the schools as the school district police officers did in the past. So this is just another example of the foolishness that takes place and how we have leaders, alleged leaders, that are spineless when it comes to protecting the population and the facilities, especially LA Unified School District.
School security back in focus following the shooting incident today in Madison, Wisconsin. And what's your reaction to this part of the story today? It turns out there in Madison, when the 911 call came in about the shooting, a group of officers were in training for exactly that type of scenario just 3 miles away. The police department chief there said, so what began as a training day became an actual thing. So that's how the call originally came in. Your reaction to that part of this tragedy?
Well, this is what happens. We train constantly. Officers without the LAPD, the Sheriff's Department, Highway Patrol, whatever the agency, we train constantly. There's always training going on. Remember a few years ago we had the North Hollywood shootout at the Bank of America in North Hollywood. We had our SWAT officers that were at the police academy in training, and they responded in civilian clothes to that tragic situation where the two brothers went into the bank with automatic weapons in a major shootout that took place on the streets of North Hollywood at the Bank of America. I was there. I remember that situation, the tragic situation that occurred there. These things happen. You need to have prevention. And prevention is to fund your police, have them there to protect and serve. That's what they're there to do.
Right, and a lot of lessons were learned from that incident, which I was on the air that day as well. I can't even imagine what it was like to be there, and it should be noted that the only two people killed that day were the gunmen. Multiple miracles occurred that day with all that gunfire there in North Hollywood 20-plus years ago.
I remember that. Matasuranian. I remember the name Matasuranian from that tragic situation where they had the shootout. And the police definitely didn't have sufficient arms to maintain. They went to the local gun store and received weapons from the gun store while SWAT was en route. SWAT has those weapons. But we've changed our tactics within the Los Angeles Police Department. Other departments have also changed. But the fact is the people in the administration, the people that dole out the dollars, the administrators, the people at top need to make sure you enhance public safety, don't reduce public safety, and don't have a knee-jerk reaction because a group calls for defund the police. That is insane when they do those situations. And these are the tragedies that occur as a subsequent to those situations.
Our heart goes out to everyone in Madison tonight. And thank you very much, Dennis ZINE, for joining us here on short notice on this big story as school security. Certainly a big issue once again. On the air with the Honorable Dennis ZINE, former LA City Council member and longtime LAPD sergeant with something like 56 years of service to the City of Angels, live with us here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC. Stay tuned now for the 790 KBC News Blitz with Randy Wang, and I'll be back with more at 4 tomorrow afternoon right here on Mottek On Money on 790 KBC.
My World with Jeff Jarrett takes wrestling fans behind the scenes, along with King of the Mountain, Conrad Thompson.
I wanted to ask you about what you know, if anything, on the new WWE ID program, where they're apparently going to be working with some independent wrestlers.
My encouragement to any independent wrestler out there, build your value and then understand your value, and then you create your own leverage. There's no substitute for hard work and getting over.
My World with Jeff Jarrett, wherever you listen.